Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm very today. Yeah, I don't know. More baseball happened, believe it or not, over the last few days. Playoff picture looks pretty interesting. We're going to talk a lot about the NL wild card today because that's pretty much the most competitive race between how close is the number of teams that are in it. There's just so much that can happen in this time, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and that sixth wild card spot, that sixth playoff spots, third wild card spot is really intriguing, especially considering all the teams that we did not really expect to see in this race that are in this race. We didn't really expect to see like maybe the Diamondbacks leading the way or the Marlins even in the mix, or even maybe even the Giants in the mix. But here we are, and especially not the Reds in the mix. We did not expect that whatsoever, but we stand here with all of them very much in contention. And yeah, as it stands right now, as we record, I know we have, as this is being released, the Cubs and Diamondbacks game will probably be underway. But as we record, the sixth playoff spot in the National League playoff picture is currently held by the Arizona Diamondbacks, with the Marlins trailing by half a game and the Reds trailing by half a game. And I believe as I go to Fangraphs, none of those three teams have playoff odds above 50%. So none of them is really the clear favorite to get in. It's very intriguing what we have ahead of us here.
Yeah, it looks like the Phillies are pretty safe in the fourth seed. They're 5 games up over the I guess the Marlins for that final wild card spot, or 5 up on the Diamondbacks, either or one of those two. But the Phillies look pretty safe in that fourth seed. They're not going to win the division. The Chicago Cubs they're still on that run, and they're 3 games up in that second wild card spot. Obviously not a guarantee that they're in at this point, but they're looking pretty comfortable. But yeah, you have the Diamondbacks holding on to that third spot, the Marlins half a game out, the Reds half a game out, the Giants only 2.5 games out, and then you look at the Padres and Giants that are, or the Padres and Pirates rather. Then I think both of them are probably out of it at this point. But nonetheless, yeah, this is a very interesting race. The Cubs Diamondback series is going to be really big because they play 3 this weekend, and then I believe they play 4 next week as well. So, because they haven't played each other at all this season, they play 3 this weekend at Wrigley starting today. And then the Cubs go to the desert next week. I don't know if it's for 3 or 4, but I'll check that right now. So it would start on Thursday.
Yeah, I believe
It's 3.
the series started yesterday. So it's 4 at Wrigley and then 3
Gotcha.
in Arizona. But yeah, it is weird to have, how Wrigley works is they have the Friday day games, but they started with
a Thursday night game.
With a Thursday night game and then going into Friday night or Friday afternoon. Yeah,
so they did play last night. The Diamondbacks took it. So the Diamondbacks could even leapfrog the Cubs if they play well enough, or at least get very close to leapfrogging the Cubs.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, Cubs are riding a bit hot. They currently have an 89.8% chance to make the playoffs according to Fangraphs playoff odds. So that is a really good spot to be in. They're 3.5 ahead of the team or the first team out of the wild card race. So yeah, they're very intriguing. And not really a team that I don't think a lot of teams want to face right now. But yeah, the Cubs are kind of comfortably in it. If they don't end up making, this wild card spot, it would be sort of on them, like sort of blowing it. It's unless a team really, really went off. I think, it's kind of the pressure's on them right now.
Yeah, the Cubs throughout this season have the third best run scoring offense in the National League. They've scored 718 runs. The only teams that have scored more are the Atlanta Braves and the LA Dodgers, and those are the two teams that everyone knew were going to be towards the top of the league this year. And the Cubs are right there at number 3. And they were at best a sleeper team this year. I don't think anyone expected a plus 97 run differential on September 8th. But that's where we're at with this team right now. They've looked really, really good. And yeah, I mean, I think they're the safest team right now out of the ones that aren't completely in yet. I think the Phillies, we can pretty much say, are pretty safe right now, to at least make the playoffs. If they go 500 in their next 22 games or so, however many they have left, they'd win like 92, 93. So
Right, exactly. And the only reason why they're not competing for the division is because the Braves are on pace for
miles
106
better.
wins.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
So
Phillies. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the Phillies are doing
Phillies
better
don't.
than they were last year, but they're just not able to really compete with the Braves in the regular season. We saw that was a much different case in the postseason. But yeah, as far as the wild card race goes, one team that was securely in a playoff spot for a while, but is completely out of it right now, or out of a playoff spot, two and a half out of a playoff spot, is the San Francisco Giants. They were 11 games above 500 about a month ago, but now they are at a flat 500 at 70-70. And yeah, that is because they have lost. They've gone 8-19 in their last 27 games. They are tied for the second worst record in Major League Baseball. Only the Rockies have been worse than the Giants in their last 27 games, and basically the last entire month, because it started on August 8th, and we're recording on September 8th. And yeah, it's been a problem of offense with the Giants. They have the lowest on base percentage and slugging in this 27 game span. They have the lowest expected slugging and expected WOBA in this span. As far as batted ball profile stuff goes, they have the third lowest average exit velocity, eighth lowest line drive rate, and fourth lowest barrel rate. But yeah, the Giants have really kind of, they sort of dropped the ball. I don't know if it had to do with schedule. I don't know if it had to do with them, just maybe they were over. I think it was a bit of overperformance on their end before the span, but yeah, they've kind of fell out of it.
Yeah, no, I mean the Giants. They've been it really since the trade deadline. It's been rough since on August 5th, or excuse me, finishing their game on August 3rd. They were 61-49, so that would make them what, 12 games above 500, 13
Yeah,
games, 12 games above 500, and they sit today, I believe below 500 entirely. Yeah, they're 70-70, so they're 12 games under 500 since August 3rd, which has been, the main reason why they've been struggling to this degree, or it's the reason they're out of the playoff race to that degree, I guess. As far as actual reasons why, I'm kind of just checking that out right now.
yeah, it's really their offense. Lowest on base percentage and slugging, lowest expected slugging and expected WOBA, or at least since August 8th, which is the span I went into.
Yeah, that's a 78 weighted runs created plus since August 5th. And also the
Right.
pitching hasn't been fantastic either. They have a 4.45 ERA, 3.98 FIP. So, not terrible, but certainly not lighting the world on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And they had a chance to kind of keep themselves in the race, but they got swept by the Cubs earlier this week, or actually, yeah, no, earlier this week. It was a 3-game set. And yeah, it was rough. They got dominated by Justin Steele in the first game, which is, understandable, but they their bullpen blew a 6-4 lead and lost 11-8 after that, and then they lost 8-2 the day after that. So, unfortunate for them that, in a big series they just did not really come through at all.
Yeah, so looking into some of the guys that have been struggling for the Giants, a lot of it has been Lamont Wade Jr. very specifically in this span since August 5th. He's played in 21 games. He's had 82 plate appearances, and he's slashing 184, 244, 303 for a 51 OPS plus, or weighted runs created plus. He's also had a negative impact on defense, and overall, he's been worth negative zero point 0.4 wins above replacement. They've also had uh, JD Davis, who was one of their better hitters for a while. He has 106 plate appearances in this span, has a 69 weighted runs created plus, and he's broke even in F4 because he's had relatively average defense and base running as well. Yeah, I mean they just haven't gotten it to click on offense as a unit overall, and yeah, that's been kind of the reason why they've been struggling so much.
Yeah, as we mentioned, lowest on base percentage and slugging percentage in the last 27 games, and I think last 30 games, which would be when that span started.
Right.
Yeah, so it hasn't been the best offensively. I think maybe you could have seen that lineup as a potential weakness heading into the season, or at least more of a weakness than the rest of their roster. And yeah, I mean, they ultimately failed on getting two free agents, which wasn't
Yeah.
completely their fault, but that's what they were looking to fill. Mitch Haniger and Michael Conforto haven't really been able to be regular contributors like they wanted them to, which is unfortunate for them. So they've been relying on a lot of like sort of inexperienced or like just a lot of different players that you wouldn't expect to be getting a lot of playing time. Like this guy, Wade Meckler, who I hadn't really heard of, who has a 39% strikeout rate in the team's last 27 games. Also like Austin Slater out there, like has a 554 OPS in the team's last 27 games. So like, it's not even necessarily that their stars are, not performing like they should have. It's just sort of like they have a lack of stars and, lack of guys that you really want out there, performing. Cause I mean, looking at the team's last 27 games, they only have 22 plate appearances from Mike Yastrzemski, 21 from Mitch Haniger, 48 from Michael Conforto. Like you want those guys to get more plate appearances, but it looks like health has been sort of an issue for them.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, they're relying so much on inexperienced players to really carry them. And as awesome as Patrick Bailey has been, and as much as I praised him on the all underrated team from the catcher position, specifically on defense, and his batted ball profile has been pretty good, and he just hasn't gotten the results. But even still, you can only expect so much from a guy that's a rookie catcher. Especially when when you look at the Giants specifically, like they had a lock at the catcher position for the last decade. So obviously they've been looking for guys to fill those big shoes, and Patrick Bailey might be that guy. But it's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, especially in his rookie season, trying to carry an offense to a playoffs or even just a team to the playoffs in general.
Right, exactly. It's a lot of responsibility there. And yeah, part of that is just sort of out of the Giants' control a little bit, like with health and, lack of luck in the free agent market. Yeah, and I mean it's looking more and more as the days go by, especially with how the last month has gone, where it's been sort of like how we outlooked the Giants preseason, which was, this is a potential bridge year, getting their young guys up and experienced and, signing some veteran guys who aren't the best, but aren't going to make you contend, but are going to make you stay afloat. And that's kind of exactly, looking at the Giants season as a whole, that's exactly what they've done as they're exactly at 500 right now. And yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising to see this, see their 70-70 record, but with how it's gone, like with the last month, it does come off a lot more surprising with how bad it's been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you mentioned them missing out on the two free agents, and a lot of it wasn't their fault, but I can't help but wonder, what if this team landed Aaron Judge, and where would they be right now if that had happened? Because, I know that like when you look at his production this year, you might consider the injury, but maybe the injury doesn't happen, right? I mean, it wasn't like a lingering thing. It was a freak play in Dodger Stadium where he, ran into that wall. I know that he would be playing in Dodger Stadium more, but you can't. It's still not a thing you can just factor in that a guy would hit a ball exactly right there against the Giant that on that trajectory. But if you can't help but wonder how far up would this team be if things had gone the right way for them in those negotiations and they had actually found a way to land Aaron Judge and to have him healthy for the majority of the thing.
Yeah, that is a good question, and that does like make me wonder about what their production out of the outfield is like on a giving it a quantitative form of like
I mean, I
where
think it'll make
they're
their
at.
defense better, no doubt.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
I mean, I'm like off the top of my head, like, it does replace a lot of production from guys like Conforto, Haniger, that have been injured. It puts less emphasis on, or you don't have to have Jock Peterson's defense be as prevalent. That's kind of just what I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, the Giants have the third lowest OPS from their outfielders this year.
Oh, then there you go.
So yeah, it would upgrade their team a lot. And yeah, I mean that I think that injury quite literally would have never happened. Maybe there's an alternate universe where he gets a worse injury at another ballpark, but like we're speaking
Yeah,
in
it's
hypotheticals.
all hypothetical, but
Yeah.
if you're imagining the Aaron Judge season that we've seen this year on the Yankees and putting it on the Giants, you can't just simply account for that injury very specifically because it wasn't a lingering thing.
Right, exactly. And like I'm thinking about yeah, you can't factor that injury. I'm thinking about what that just generally what this season looks like if that injury never happens. And I mean, up to that point, he had an OPS in the near 1100. And
Hmm.
since then it's gone down a little bit. He's been getting BABIP'd a little bit since he came back, but
Yeah.
also I think his base running and defense has obviously taken a little bit of a toll naturally because he's on a bad toe. But like that he's at a 4-win season right now. And if that injury never happened, it's probably a 6 or 7 win season now, which is like that. Yeah, that would really help the Giants out. And that would probably put them in a playoff spot right now if they were able to get him.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
So yeah, I mean, it would transform the year from maybe a bridge year over to
Hmm.
a playoff year. Granted, it's all hypotheticals, and I think Judge wanted to go back to the Yankees, which is why he was, pretty stiff on negotiations with other teams. But I think he wanted to go back to the Yankees, so it's not necessarily completely on the Giants. I mean, even the Padres offered $410 million, and he rejected it
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
from them.
right.
So that's a sign. That's definitely a sign.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the
One
Giants, they're 2.5 out, and
yeah.
the last thing I'll say on them is on August 7th, their playoff odds were 78%, and now they are 21%. So it's been quite the
Hmm.
downfall.
Yeah. The next team that I want to talk about is the Miami Marlins because they have been, every time you think like they just shouldn't still be in it, they just find their way back into it. I know that they do have a negative 44 run differential. I don't really care. It's because their bullpen's been pretty solid, generally speaking, throughout this season with AJ Puck and your guy, Tanner Scott.
Yeah.
Um, but from an offensive standpoint, I don't know if there's a team in Major League Baseball that had a better trade deadline, because the big two pieces that they got at the deadline were Jake Berger and Josh Bell. Berger has an 878 OPS for the Marlins, a 137 OPS plus. Josh Bell has an 858 OPS and a 130 OPS plus. And Chris, before you ask, no, his ground ball rate is not down.
Oh yeah.
He's still hitting the ball on the ground a little too much, but when he doesn't hit it on the ground, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, he already has 9 home runs for the Marlins in just 136 plate appearances, and 16 RBI, which probably means that almost all of his RBI have come on home runs. Jake Berger with 6 home runs already, which has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, Burger's smacking the ball. He's been doing really well since the trade, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah, they had a good deadline with offensive pieces, and they just had a winning streak snap against the Dodgers, and they still won that series
Mhm.
against the Dodgers, I believe. They had a 6 game win streak going to pull them right back into playoff contention, which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Unfortunately, they did get some unfortunate news. Yeah, Sandy Alcantara who was really just looking like he was finally hitting his stride. He's kind of struggled all season. Uh, we haven't seen the Sandy Alcantara that we knew last year. But ultimately it's been kind of come back. But unfortunately he's on the IL. Jorge Soler also hit the IL. He's mashed lefties this year beyond anyone's belief.
Yeah.
I want to check the splits, but yeah, they are gonna have to go without one of their best bats and their ace for the rest of most likely for the rest of this year, or at least for the majority of the rest of this year. Off of lefties, Jorge Soler had a 1089 OPS. So yeah, and a 705 slugging.
Yeah, a 705 slugging against lefty. That's crazy.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, the Marlins are really like, you know, it's cliche to say, but they are like the wild card team. Like you just don't really know what to expect. You don't know where you're, where the temperature should land on them, really. Like you don't know, like it shouldn't, they shouldn't have gotten this far, but here they are.
No.
They're here. They're here for it. They have some really talented players. Some of them just hit the IL, unfortunately, but like there's like really good potential with like Yuri Perez. I know we clowned him a couple times, but like, he's still, he's a really good pitcher. Jesus Luzardo for most of the year has been really good. You have these new additions with Jake Berger and Josh Bell. I think Brian De La Cruz and like Jesus Sanchez are also good options with that lineup. There's some really intriguing things with the Marlins team. I just don't know how much to believe in them, but they keep showing up. They're just not leaving. They just don't leave.
Well, I'll tell you why it's hard to believe in the Marlins. It's because there's still so much of a black hole on that team because for the last like 3 years, we've known what the Marlins issue is. It's been offense, and it's been giving too many plate appearances to guys that shouldn't get them. This year, they've given 1,245 plate appearances to Nick Fortis, Joey Wendell, Gene Segura, Jacob Stallings, and Avisail Garcia, all of which have an OPS plus of 61 or lower.
Wow.
And that doesn't include plate appearances that went to Yuli Gurriel with an 82 OPS plus, to like various other players that have not been performing as well. Yeah, you can't be giving that many plate appearances to guys that have shown that little efficiency. That's clearly something they need to work on this year, but they've been overcoming it, right? Like Luis Ariz has been excellent all year. I know that we've been talking about the 400 possibility, and that's out the window now, but fine, it's fine. He's still hitting 353 on September 8th with a 132 OPS plus. I think that's all right. Jorge Soler was excellent until he hit the IL. And the pitching has, been, they've been doing their thing. I mean, Alcantara, Luzardo, Garrett, Cabrera, Perez, they've all been like serviceable at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. Like pitching, yeah, pitching has not really been a a bad thing for them, really for a while now. But yeah, like Luzardo, I mentioned him as a slightly alarming, but that was only 4 starts, and he's kind of come back. Like he's come back to form since then, which is really nice for them. Braxton Garrett, as you mentioned, he's been a really nice surprise. So yeah, I mean, like if they hypothetically go into a postseason series, I'm not, their starting rotation, like that starter versus starter matchup is going to look fairly even. It's just the fact that it's going to be their offense against a number one starter.
Yes.
And we saw that, like people sometimes when talking about playoff series, they forget that like a team's offense does exist, and it's not just
yeah.
the
I mean, it's so easy to look at
pitcher.
it through the eyes of the matchups and being like, oh well, this pitcher's better, so they should win.
But like, yeah, like we remember the 2021 NLDS between the Brewers and Braves, and I believe I looked back to like make sure a little bit ago, just thinking about like trying to rid of the playoff cliches about like it's all pitching, bro, it's all pitching.
Yeah.
When I think the Brewers when they lost the NLDS to the Braves, I think their team ERA in that series was like 3.18. It was like really good.
But they scored like 3 runs the whole series.
Yes, they scored. Yeah, I think they got shut out at one point. They scored like 6 or 7 runs in 4 games, which is crazy, and like that was a weakness. So the Marlins could run into that problem. Maybe like, you know, Jesus Luzardo slices and dices for 6 innings, but they also haven't scored a run. So, you
Hmm.
know, you do have to score more than the other team, and that comes from scoring runs at some point, whether it's 2 or 6. Like you're gonna have to score those runs, and
Just
yeah,
looking, I'm looking into that series now. Yeah, and it was something.
yeah, it was quite the series. I think.
The Brewers
Um,
won two. The Brewers won 2-1. Then they lost 3-0. Then they lost 3-0 again, and then they lost 5-4. The Brewers, as a team, had a 527 OPS in that series. The Braves had a 697. The Brewers in that series had a 318 ERA, which is very
yep,
good. But the Braves had
right,
a 154 because they were facing the Brewers offense.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, you know, that just a tip if you're betting on playoff games or something, just consider if there is an offense on the other side of that pitching matchup.
Hmm.
But but yeah, so the Marlins lie a half game out. The Reds also lie a half game out. They also just don't seem to go away. But for some reason I believe I don't know, I just believe there's something magical about the Reds this year. I don't know what it is, but they just
Hmm.
have something.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we kind of, we look at Ellie De La Cruz and like we don't see the guy that everyone else sees because we look at Fangraphs. But he is extremely fun and he is extremely exciting when he's hitting. Problem is he's not
Yeah.
always hitting, right? I mean, he has a below average weighted runs created plus. He has a 35% strikeout rate this year, 34.4%. Um,
Yeah.
But, he's a guy that is capable of going on a run and kind of just putting the entire offense on his back. And it feels like it's due to happen at any time, regardless of what the weighted runs created plus says.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a good point to make. Like with how hard he hits the ball and how often he can barrel it, you know, he can definitely go on a run. Along with that, you know, Spencer Steer has been you know, the second best Reds rookie behind Matt McClain, I think. Um,
Yep.
so there has been him and what he's been able to bring to the lineup. Will Benson, like just an underrated king out there with an 853 OPS,
Yeah.
366 on base percentage, with good base running. Like they're also just a really good base running team. I mean the concern you would have is with starting pitching, considering how like the level of talent they have on the IL right now is tough. You know,
Yes.
Hunter Green's on the IL, Graham Ashcraft, Brendan Williamson, and Nick Lodolo has been on the IL for a while, unfortunately. So the only like real consistent starter that they've had
Is
for
Andrew Abbott.
most of the year is Andrew Abbott. Um, so that's a concern of theirs. Their bullpen has been surprisingly not a disaster, so that's good for them. Um, but yeah, it's hard to outlook like it's hard to outlook what this team is. It seems like the team most reliable to succeed out of this like you know motley crew of like 4 teams is probably the Diamondbacks because of like
Mhm.
they seem like the most deep. They
Yes. No, I,
just
I would absolutely agree with that.
yeah, they seem like the most deep. And as if you want to outlook schedule wise, the Marlins have the hardest schedule remaining of these 4 teams. They have the fifth hardest schedule remaining in baseball. They have to face the Braves for a series, the Phillies for a series, and the Brewers for 2 series. So that's, you know, 3 really high level teams for, you know, accounting for more than half their schedule, 13 out of 22 games. The team with the easiest schedule remaining is the Reds. They have the fifth easiest schedule remaining in baseball. They have 2 series against the Cardinals. They also have a series against the Tigers, Mets, Pirates, and Guardians. And the only really tough series they have is the Twins, which they could easily win. The Reds are, you know, around the same record as the Twins. So, you know, not much to worry about there. And then, yeah, the Diamondbacks have a middle of the pack schedule remaining. There's, you know, 16th hardest in baseball. Giants have the ninth easiest, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but they also have to face the Dodgers for 2 series and the Diamondbacks for a series, but they also have the Rockies for 2 series. So it's, you know, completely polar opposites, but they have the ninth easiest schedule remaining. Yeah, I don't know. If you had to predict, who do you think is going to end up with the sixth seed in the wild card spot?
Yeah, I mean, the Diamondbacks is probably the safe pick. The Reds might be like a sneaky pick. The Marlins have just continued to find a way, and the Giants are capable of climbing back into it. Um, I'm gonna go with the Diamondbacks. I think they've just been there for most of the season, and they've overcome, a really really bad losing stretch. Even with as little experience they have, I think it's been really impressive the way that they've just climbed back into it and become a formidable playoff foe again after that stretch where they fell under 500. Like they had an improbably bad run that we talked about, a couple months ago, but they are back, and I feel like they're just going to keep going.
Yeah, it does seem like it should be them. They also just seem to have the most talented roster out of, these four different teams. Yeah, but there are still some concerns I have with just the roster. Like, just for example, the rotation beyond Gallen and Kelly. I don't know how many reliable starts you're going to get out of, the other three options that they have. The bullpen I still don't love, but yeah, their offense is really nice. They have great impact players like Corbin Carroll and Christian Walker. So there is that. The Reds are an interesting option because they have the easiest strength of schedule out of these four teams, fifth easiest schedule in baseball. So that part does come into play, but they also are a roster filled with holes. So I mean, if I had to pick, I think I'd go Diamondbacks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Reds get it. I'd be very surprised to see the Marlins get it, considering their schedule. But the Marlins are just keep surprising us. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I would also be surprised to see the Marlins get it, or even the Giants, just because of how many teams they have to leapfrog. But yeah, I
Right.
think the Diamondbacks are the pick I'd go with at this moment right now. But that could change tomorrow. It could change next week. It could change at any point.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, like the Marlins at this point last week were like only one game above 500. So, and I just figured they were out of it,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
but then they go off and they win six in a row, including two against the Dodgers. So yeah, you really do never know. Um, but yeah, and the Giants coming back would surprise me considering their momentum right now. They're just not winning. They just haven't been able to do that in a month. So yeah, that would definitely surprise me. Anything more before we get into players to highlight?
I think that's it.
All right, so now we will get into our Friday, September 8th, 2023 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
He is getting a
How about that?
Yeah, so for my how about that today, I'm going with a guy that I actually went with as a how about that in 2021, and he's been doing it again over the last couple of months. I'm talking about Freddie Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers. He's really been carrying that rotation since July 26th over his last 8 starts. He has a 2.09 ERA and a 1.97 FIP. That ERA ranks third lowest in the majors in this span, and his FIP is second lowest, only to Cole Reagans, who has been just lighting the world on fire. Before this span, Freddie Peralta's fly ball rate was 29.1%, and his line drive rate was 21.8%. And in the span, his fly ball rate has gone down to 25.5%. That's about a 4% drop. And his line drive rate has gone down to 13.8%. That's an 8-point drop. So additionally, his ground ball rate before the span was 40.1%, and his pop-up rate was 8.7%. And in the span, his ground ball rate has gone up 5.5% to 45.7%, and his pop-up rate has gone up to 14.9%. That is a 6% gain, and that is the sixth highest pop-up rate among the 212 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls allowed in this span. His four-seam fastball, which has been his most used pitch in the span, has been one of the most effective pitches in all of baseball. It has a 40.5% whiff rate, which is the highest among the 76 pitchers with at least 100 swings against their four-seamer, and it also ranks 3% above the second highest whiff rate on four-seamers. So again, 40% of his four-seam fastballs have been 40% of the swings have been misses, which is excellent. Among the 85 pitchers with at least 200 four-seamers thrown in the span, Freddie Peralta ranks second in batting average against at 132, first in slugging percentage against at 145, with the second highest being 216, first in expected batting average with a 143, second in expected slugging with a 192, the second lowest being 284, and first in run value with 9.7. So he's had a remarkable run over the last few months. His fastball has been electric. His batted ball profile has been so much better, especially with the pop-ups. And because of that, Freddie Peralta has been one of the best pitchers in baseball for the last month and a half.
Yeah, Freddie Peralta.
How about that?
Yeah, he's a sub 2 FIP over 8 starts is pretty remarkable. And yeah, I mean, that four-seamer definitely seems to show effect, and it, along with the whiff rate, you would assume also most of the pop-ups are coming off that four-seamer as well, considering how if you're throwing it up in the zone, it's going to have a higher pop-up rate. So yeah, I mean, working really effectively. How about that? I was worried. When you introed it, I was worried you were going with the same guy as me, because I think also you did a how about that on this guy in 2021. But yeah, I'm talking about Yoan Moncada, who has been kind of struggling for the last 2 years, up to his last 11 games. And in his last 11 games, he is hitting 444 with a 1278 OPS. And out of 182 qualifiers in the span, Yoan Moncada leads the MLB in batting average, is 5th in on-base percentage, 7th in slugging, and 5th in OPS. Moncada also has a 401 expected batting average in the span, and out of 182 hitters with 150 plus pitches seen in the span, his expected batting average is the highest. It's really hard to have a 400 expected batting average in really any span, so it's really impressive that he's been able to do this in his last 11 games. Along with that, his expected slugging is 6th, and his expected WOBA is 4th in this span. A large part of this has to do with him hitting the ball way harder. His average exit velocity has gone from 88.4 miles per hour before the span to 94.0 miles per hour in this span. Out of 194 hitters with 25 plus batted balls in the span, his average exit velocity ranks 14th. Along with that, Yoan Moncada's line drive rate has gone from 27% to 46%. Out of 194 hitters, he has the highest line drive rate in baseball in the span. And on those line drives, he's 10 for 12 with 3 doubles. So it is working out really, really well for him. Along with that, Moncada's sweet spot rate, which kind of coincides with the line drive rate a little bit, has gone from 40% before the span to 62% in the span. Almost 2 out of 3 batted balls that Moncada hits is between that 8 and 32 degree zone, which is really important because hitters hit about 590 and slug around 1100 in that area. And out of 194 hitters, Yoan Moncada's sweet spot rate is the highest in baseball. So his line drive rate and sweet spot rate are the highest, along with his batting average in baseball in the span. Along with that, Yoan Moncada's barrel rate has gone from 6% before the span to 19%. It is more than tripled. Along with that, out of 194 hitters, Yoan Moncada's barrel rate is 16th highest in baseball, near the top 10 or in the top 10% in all of baseball. So Yoan Moncada is hitting the ball much, much harder. He's hitting way more line drives, way more balls in the sweet spot zone, and also way more barrels. So, and that has resulted in him having the highest batting average in baseball and the 5th highest OPS in basically the last 2 weeks of baseball here. So, Yoan Moncada is getting a
How about that?
And and now we will get into players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Friday, September 8th, 2023 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, good stuff there, Chris. I did do a how about that on Yoan Moncada in 2021, and I talked about how he was on pace to have his second qualifying season with a 400 BABIP, and he would have been the first player in the live ball era to do so. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to qualify this year unless he has like 60 plate appearances a game here on out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for my slightly alarming, I am putting someone in the throw zone because it is the second time I am highlighting him on slightly alarming. I'm talking about Nolan Arenado, obviously of the St. Louis Cardinals, because since August 21st, he is slashing 167, 224, 204 for a 428 OPS and a 14 weighted runs created plus, along with a negative 0.4 FWAR. In this span, his slugging percentage ranks third lowest, his weighted runs created plus ranks sixth lowest, and his FWAR is tied for third lowest among the 181 qualifiers. And during the span, his fly ball rate is around 23.9%, which is around the major league average, but his average exit velocity on fly balls is 84.2 miles per hour, and that is tied for the lowest among the 137 hitters with at least 10 fly balls in this span. Now, if Nolan Arenado's average exit velocity on fly balls was around like 90 miles per hour, that would still not be great. Like, you're not getting a home run really at all on that unless you kind of hook it down the line. But 84.2 miles per hour is a free out every single time on a fly ball. Like, there's no scenario in which that's a hit virtually at any point. His average exit velocity overall in the span is 84.5 miles per hour. That is the eighth lowest among the 175 hitters with at least 50 plate appearances in this span. And against fastballs, he is hitting and slugging 174. That average ranks 16th lowest, and slugging ranks 7th lowest among the 212 hitters with at least 25 plate appearances ending on a fastball. I know that the Cardinal season is kind of meaningless right now, but Nolan Arenado is, pretty safe. He has the contract there. He opted into his deal with the Cardinals, so it's hard to imagine he's going anywhere, although not impossible. But, he certainly has not been hitting very well over the last few weeks.
Yeah, Nolan Arenado.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, and in the throw zone, which I think only has happened one other time in ARR history,
which
was sort of it was sort of accidental because our guests didn't know which slightly alarmings we had done previously, so it made for a double dip. But yeah, and honestly, I don't see it as that bad of a marker because like it means that he got better after our slightly alarming and then dipped back to
it's two separate spans entirely because I talked about him in like April or May.
Yeah, no, it's been
and he has a 796 OPS this season, which obviously means at some point he turned it back on.
Yeah, like it's been about 4 months since we talked about him. And yeah, for the second time with Nolan Arenado, we're double dipping on Arenado.
So really we've covered him 4 times.
Yes, we have. Sorry, Nolan. But in his last 11 games, he is hitting 136 with a 333 OPS and negative 18 weighted runs created plus. Out of 182 qualifiers in this span, Nolan Arenado's average is 5th lowest, on-base percentage is 4th lowest, slugging is 2nd lowest, and OPS is the lowest. So yeah, of course, we're double dipping. We had to highlight him if he has the lowest OPS in his last 11 games. Out of 182 hitters with 150 plus pitches seen in the span, his expected WOBA is also the 5th lowest in baseball. His average exit velocity, just generally speaking, on all batted balls has gone from 89.2 miles per hour before the span to 84.8 miles per hour in the span. And his hard hit rate has gone from 40% to 24%. And out of 194 hitters with 25 plus batted balls in the span, Nolan Arenado's hard hit rate is 20th lowest. And along with that, Nolan Arenado's line drive rate has gone from 25% to 16%. Sweet spot rate has gone from 34% to 24%. And his pop-up rate has also gone from 11% to 16%. And out of 194 hitters, Nolan Arenado's pop-up rate is the 10th highest in baseball. And also along with that, partially on your point of average exit velocity on fly balls, his barrel rate has gone from 8% before the span to 3% in the span. It's been cut by more than half. So Nolan Arenado, it's not really a case of him missing the ball. It's just when he hits the ball, it's not doing what it normally does. He's not hitting the ball. He's hitting the ball way softer. He's hitting far less line drives, far less barrels, far less balls in the sweet spot zone, more pop-ups, and just not getting the good results. And that is why, from both of us, he's getting a
Slightly alarming.
All right, well, that will do it for players to highlight, and we will get into a preview of the weekend ahead. Some of these series have already started. I will be talking about the series to watch. Daniel will be talking about the day-by-day pitching matchups, and a series that has already started and is important in the playoff picture is Cubs Diamondbacks. Both currently hold a spot in the National League playoff picture. They're the 5th and 6th seeds there. That's a set of 4. It started yesterday with the D-backs winning, and it'll continue Friday afternoon and through Sunday. Along with that, we have Marlins Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. Phillies have a little less to play for than the Marlins. Marlins have a good amount to play for, considering they're a half game out of the of that 6th wild card, or that 6th playoff spot. And the premier series to watch is another 4-game series. It is at Tropicana Field. It is between the Rays and the Mariners, who are both trying to win their division. But if they don't win their division, they pretty much have a easy spot in the wild card race. They're both fighting to win their division right now, and they are two of the most talented teams in the American League. So definitely a series to watch there. What do you have for the day-by-day pitching matchups?
Yeah, so on Friday, as we're recording this, this will probably already have happened by the time this comes out, but Zach Gallen and Jamison Taillon will face each other in the Diamondbacks-Cubs matinee today. Andrew Abbott will be pitching for the Reds against the Cardinals in Great American Ballpark. George Kirby and Taj Bradley will face each other in Mariners Rays, as Chris just mentioned, in Tropicana Field. Mackenzie Gore will be facing the Dodgers for the Nationals at Nationals Park. The Nationals played very well at home lately, and Mackenzie Gore has looked a lot better as the season has gone on. Yuri Perez will be facing the Phillies for the Marlins in Citizens Bank Park. You will have Yusei Kikuchi facing the Royals for the Blue Jays at the Rogers Center. Kyle Bradish and Tanner Houck will face each other in Orioles Red Sox at Fenway. Jordan Montgomery will be facing the A's for the Rangers at home in Texas. Blake Snell and Hunter Brown will face each other in Padres Astros in Houston. Kodai Senga will be facing the Twins for the Mets in Minnesota. And then Kyle Harrison will be facing the Rockies for the Giants at home. And matchup of the night comes from Pirates and Braves in Atlanta. It's Mitch Keller versus Bryce Elder.
Yeah, you got a good strikeout guy versus good ground ball guy.
Absolutely. So then on Saturday, Wade Miley will be facing the Yankees for the Brewers at Yankee Stadium. Brewers trying to expand their division lead. David Peterson and Kenta Maeda will face each other in Mets Twins at Target Field. Merrill Kelly and Justin Steele will face each other in Diamondbacks and Cubs. Obviously a big matchup there. Bobby Miller will be facing the Nationals for the Dodgers at Nats Park. Aaron Savali will be facing the Mariners for the Rays in the Trop. Jack Flaherty and Chris Sale will be facing each other in Orioles Red Sox. You will have Johnny Cueto and Aaron Nola facing each other in Marlins and Phillies. Tarek Skubal will be facing the White Sox for the Tigers at home. John Gray will be facing the A's for the Rangers. You will have Lucas Giolito making his return to Angels Stadium facing Tyler Anderson. And then you'll have Seth Lugo and Christian Javier facing each other in Padres Astros. I already kind of brushed through this, but matchup of the day is going to be Merrill Kelly versus Justin Steele.
Yeah, that's a great run prevention game there. That's for sure. Not to get
Merrill
off track,
Kelly,
but I realized that I think we're moving on, and we can't do like the 2014 classics anymore, because I heard Johnny Cueto's name and I was like,
it's more of like it's Aaron Nola.
But like the guys that peaked in 2014 are like all retired now, or just out of the league.
You got to just move it up to a different year.
Yeah, exactly. Like a 2016, 2017 classic now. I heard Cueto's name.
I guess you could say Johnny Cueto versus Aaron Nola.
Yeah, I heard Cueto's name and I was like, oh, what are some other 2014 classics we could go with? And I'm like, there's really not that many.
Greinke versus Cueto.
Yeah, like Bumgarner's like sort of
Greinke
out of
versus
baseball right now.
Wainwright. Yeah.
Right.
Bumgarner's out of baseball. Yeah, I guess Kershaw.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
DeGrom's on the IL.
by the way, Merrill Kelly this year, 148 innings pitched, and he is a 9.6 strikeouts per nine.
Yeah, he's been good. Like, luck, you know, whatever luck he
Might be
has, it's
a
still been good.
might be a higher strikeout rate this year than Steele.
Yeah,
He's probably
probably.
around the same. He's a 9.1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how about that? On Sunday to finish it off, Ranger Suarez will be facing the Marlins for the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. Zach Eflin will be facing the Mariners for the Rays at the Trop. Grayson Rodriguez and Brian Bayo, a couple of young guys, going in the finale of Red Sox Orioles. That's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Paul Reagan's, it's going to be Reagan's Day in Toronto. So, I mean, be on the lookout at 1:37 p.m. Eastern time. Hunter Green will be coming off the IL to face the Cardinals for the Reds at home. Tyler McGill and Pablo Lopez will face each other in Mets Twins. Andrew Heaney will be facing the A's for the Rangers at home. Tanner Bybee will be facing the Angels for the Guardians at Angels Stadium. And matchup of the day, without any doubt. By the way, why is the Sunday night game Rockies Giants at Oracle?
Um,
Is there a specific reason for that?
yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. You got Arenado and Story versus, you got Cueto, Bumgarner over there.
Yeah.
I'm trying I'm trying to think of when that matchup was ever relevant.
No,
Like
it's
like the
I
Giants
guess
were not good when the Rockies were good, and the Rockies were not good when the Giants were good.
and the Rockies were not good.
Yeah, no.
They just weren't good. Anyway, that's very odd. Matchup of the night or matchup of the afternoon comes from Brewers Yankees. It's Corbin Burns versus Garrett Cole.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a bad day to be
You could have
a
had Padres Astros. Like, did they?
yeah,
Maybe they just didn't want to put the Astros on twice, like 2 times in a row.
yeah, I guess not. Yeah. Yeah, Burns
And
and Cole. Tough day to be a contact percentage.
yeah,
I, I'd hate to be a contact percentage that day.
man, what was the last time the Rockies were on Sunday Night Baseball? Like, I'm not even
Maybe
gonna count the wild card game. Like Sunday Night Baseball, like they wanted them there.
yeah, no, I like maybe against the Dodgers once or something.
The people need to see Peter Lambert
Maybe
on the
there's just a
mound.
contractual obligation, like you have to have this team on like every 3 years at least, like once every
Yeah,
3 years.
yeah, and they're realizing, oh my God, it's the end of 2023. It's been 3 years.
Yeah,
They're playing the Giants. Cool, they might make the playoffs.
yeah, yeah. So odd. All right, well that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look at all the features, look at the playlists, look at the shorts, guest interviews with Chris Cotillo, most recently Mike Petriello. Go back to the archives, check out our interviews with Sarah Langs, Chris Rose, Mark Simon multiple times. Really good stuff over there, and most of it, it's not time specific. It ranges over time. And yeah, go check out our social medias. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Current, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.